On today's show, how A Quiet Place made a big boom at the box office, an NHL playoff preview, and could Doctor Strange be the next leader of the MCU? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. We are back once again with the pop culture cosmos. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. Thanks so much for tuning in to our show each and every week. We present it to you. We're just so happy that you're back listening to us. And it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is the main man at Humanica Media. You got to check out all their great stuff today at humanicamedia.com. It's, of course, Josh Peterson. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, just checking out these new trailers that popped up here recently for a little Star Wars story, but I'm sure we'll get to that later. How's it going,
We
man?
will, actually, we'll touch on that as the weeks to come. I know that Solo, a Star Wars story, we actually posted it on our Pop Culture Cosmos Facebook page. So if you get a chance, just check us out. It's in our Pop Culture Cosmos news feed right there for you. Also, as well, the latest cinematic trailer for Marvel Infinity War also came out, and that one, I tell you, is a hoot as well. Just so excited for both those movies. It was announced Solo would be debuting at Cannes this year around mid-May. I think May 15ish, if I'm not mistaken. So, it is a reality. It is going to happen, and it's going to be out in theaters around Memorial Day weekend here in the United States and all over the world as well, the end of May. So definitely looking forward to that. Of course, Infinity War, everybody's excited for that coming up later this month. It's beginning to look a lot better for the film industry now after coming off one of their worst months in almost 20 years here at the North American box office, with just a disappointing March. But definitely things are starting to turn around already. And it all starts off with a bang, well, a silent one, with A Quiet Place taking the U.S. box office with 50 million this weekend at the box office. Josh, this horror thriller slash suspense slash, whatever you want to call it, scary, maybe even a little bit of a sci-fi element to it. It has garnered great reviews, almost 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and is actually doing very well at the box office. In fact, it actually exceeded expectations, and it almost fits into that horror genre with those big opening weekends. Your thoughts on it? You've actually seen it, so I want to hear your thoughts on A Quiet Place and why it's making so much noise at the box office.
Yeah, it was a very quiet movie through most of it. They were It's not what I expected it to be, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. They market it as a horror movie. They market it as one of those I don't know. The marketing materials kind of reminded me of The Others with Nicole Kidman and maybe a little bit of Signs too, but I went into it and it's more like, how people like The Walking Dead because it kind of chronicles the human interactions when you're trying to survive, a big apocalyptic event. It was kind of like that. So that you have this family living on this farm. They never really say where the creatures come from. That you see like glimpses of newspapers and stuff saying, talk about how to survive, and talks about they don't say invasion. They don't really say anything. They just say the creatures, just newspaper clippings of the creatures and how to fight them and what you need. So, I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's going to spoil it. And it's a new movie, so I don't want people not to go see it. But the movie starts out really quiet and it kind of shows how the family survives. They have this system of lights that shows when something's moving or when there's an emergency, and they kind of live underground. It shows how like for the kids how they keep quiet and like you can't make any noises, and how the creatures hunt and stuff like that, and how this family survives. And it's kind of really, it's more of a story about them than it is about the creatures, but I'll get to that in a minute. They use sound to build moments of suspense, so you can tell that, like, for example, the son is really scared of every type of he's scared to leave the comfort of or the protection of where they live, because absolutely terrified of these creatures. And if you see the movie, you'll understand why. And then you have the daughter who is deaf, and she uses one of those cochlear implants, and the dad is trying to make it so she can hear, make it work, and it kind of does, kind of doesn't. But then that has a huge part to play later on in the movie, and it's just like it's their dynamic. The mom's pregnant, and you have stuff like that. So they do kind of, you know how in Dunkirk they use like the tick, 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 tick to build those moments of suspense. Anytime because the whole movie's silent, so not silent, but like the first half is pretty silent. So anytime you hear any type of music play, you know that it's building up towards something. And what the movie does, like, okay, we talked about this before the podcast, but you know how in Signs they do a good job of scaring you because they don't really show you what these creatures are. You see things move, and then about halfway through, you see the legs sticking out, or even early on in the movie, you see the silhouette of the alien on the roof of the barn. In this, they show you what these creatures are almost immediately. So that kind of takes the whole, uh, and I think they did it on purpose. So where it kind of takes the attention off of what they are and the mystery of them, and focuses more on the family dynamic and the survival of it, and allows them to use clever editing techniques with sound to build up suspense in the audience. And so the movie goes on, and you have it escalates. Of course, there's going to be an incident where their house starts getting overrun by these things, but it's it's clever, it's clever. And there are some parts though that I feel were cheap, where they have, like, for example, um they kind of do a good job of leading you into the next plot twist. So they have, like, the mom drags a laundry bag of laundry up the stairs, and it pulls a loose nail out of the floorboard, and you look at it, you're like, somebody's going to step on that later, somebody's going to step on that. And then later on the movie.
The same tropes that you see in a lot of other like films as far as horror or thrillers or suspense is concerned, correct?
Right, and it almost, like, to a point, it almost feels cheap because, obviously, you're not gonna see it, so, right? Can I say what's gonna happen? So the mom steps on.
Well, hold on. Spoilers, everyone.
Spoilers, everyone. So the mom steps on the nail, but through the whole movie, nobody bothers to like push the nail back down. So there's multiple scenes of people running up and down the stairs after that, and every time you're thinking, someone's gonna step on that, somebody's going to step on that, and they don't, and it feels kind of cheap, in a way. And then there's another part where the dad saves the mom, and he has to go back up the stairs because they built this soundproof room underneath their barn. And as he leaves, you see a pipe leaking kind of off to the side, and you're like, that's going to flood the basement. That's totally going to flood the basement. And lo and behold, it floods the basement. Another thing, kids fall into a tower full of seeds. You're like, those kids somebody's gonna end up drowning in the seeds. Lo and behold. So it's kind of
Instead of the teenagers running in the woods and one of them falling and tripping in the woods, this is you can actually see some of the stuff unfolding a mile away as far as the suspense aspect is concerned. So it takes almost a little bit out of that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it does. And see, the thing about this is the kids are really smart. It's just like weird acts of quote unquote fate in the film that lead them into these situations. All in all, it's a good movie. I didn't like the ending because it felt it felt cheap in a way. Not cheap, but, like, I want to say corny. Because is it okay? Can I say the end? Is this gonna?
I guess spoil it now. You already said some spoilers already. Can you be just maybe roundabout? Maybe not give full spoilers on it?
No, I mean, it doesn't ruin the story or anything, but it kind of ends with, like, the mom, like, has the shotgun, and she, like, does this weird, like, nod at the daughter, and she goes, chick, chick, and then the credits roll. So it's kind of like I don't know, it takes away that whole, like, suspense thing, and just kind of be like, well, this is kind of like how a Die Hard film would end. So though it has its things that are, not great, but it's also a really, really good movie. And what I think what I liked about it was that it was nothing what I was expecting it to be. And
Well, in what way, as far as how did you think, how you, because like I said, you pointed out some of the flaws in the movie, but what are some of the things as far as that that happened that maybe you weren't expecting, or that made it so enjoyable and gave it a positive review from you?
well, just going into it, like, just because the whole movie, I had created these expectations, and the movie was nothing what I was expecting it to be. So all those expectations crumbled the moment I walked into the movie theater, and the moment the movie started. And they don't shy. You have a lot of movies that like they want to prolong dramatic moments. They use like cheap techniques to no, this movie used some cheap techniques, but they use these techniques to like make you they use sorry like kids, for example. They'll use kids to kind of be like get you attached to these characters, that this little kid, and you're like, or dogs or something. They'll get you attached to these like cute little things, and you're like, it just hurts so much more when though something bad happens or you think something bad's going to happen. Like it moves you to the edge of your seat. But here they don't shy away from like shocking you with things, and just they prove that in like the first 3 minutes of the film. And it's that's cool about it. But you know, it has some flaws in the logic of it all, but you know, that's neither here nor there. But I enjoyed it. You know, despite some of the things that I wouldn't have done, like I still thought that it was a good overall. It was it was a good film. I'll probably send a review up here soon, but you know, if you're on the fence about it, I would recommend going to see it because it's not one of those movies that I can fully put into words. It's something that it gives you more of a feeling than you know, an intellectual I don't know what I want to call that. It's not really an intellectual ride. It's more of an emotional one.
It's presenting you something different in the fact that obviously, like you said, the first part of the movie is dedicated to just silence or being very quiet as far as the whole ambiance and devoting so much to what the title speaks as far as it's concerned for their own safety.
Yeah, it's less of a yeah, exactly. It's less of a like horror movie. Not it's not a horror movie in the aspect that they market it as, which they were clever with their marketing. It's more of a emotional. You become attached to the characters and not the monsters. I guess is what I'm trying to say here.
That's and there's grade A. Well, actually, there's top name actors in Emily Blunt and John Krasinski uh, being the stars of it. So there actually is some heavy duty star power guiding this story along. So it's good to hear that there are positive things to come out of. Like I said, it's got almost 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's done very well at the US box office, and I expect it to be something that people will be interested in seeing because of its novel concept. And obviously, like you said, you were talking about with the audio editing, something to be taught, you know, something to be thought about when it comes to audio editing for Oscars this time next year, as far as maybe possibly being considered or even coming out with one, as far as if the audio editing is as good as you say as well. So definitely something to think about there. It is A Quiet Place. It once again does very well here in the United States, topping out with 50 million plus. It looks like it's going to have the second biggest weekend of the year at the US box office. Ready Player One, which finished second at the US box office this weekend, was first last weekend. It garnered 53 over a 4 day span because it would opened up a day earlier than a normal movie would on Friday. It opened up a day earlier. So, but that is still doing well because that is almost because that this week because this week it will go over $400 million worldwide. So, good news for fans of Ready Player One. Actually, here in a minute, Rob McCallum in the Cosmic Crossfire and I will go back and forth on our thoughts about Ready Player One, the movie itself, and also what it represents. And if it should have been even considered as a TV show or something different, we talk about that coming up here in a few minutes. But once again, Ready Player One looking to go over $400 million worldwide. The box office seems to be getting a little bit better after a disastrous month of March, one of the worst months of one of the worst months in over 20 years at the US box office as far as, you know, generating revenue. So definitely that's a good sign as far as the box office is concerned. But I ask you one last question. A Quiet Place, like I said, did very well for a movie considered maybe a horror, suspense, thriller type deal. Will it follow suit of other horror movies in its second weekend and going forward with a steep drop as many other horror movies do in its second, third week, and beyond.
I don't think so. I don't think it'll have a drop, but I don't think it's going to be a dramatic one because this is one of those like artsy movies, and artsy movies seem to do well in the fact that they, instead of having this steep decline, it's kind of a just a little like, downhill
A gradual type.
flutter. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think it's going to maybe in the third or fourth week it's out, it might drop significantly. But as far as like, for the next couple of weeks, I think it's gonna do pretty well.
Because it's not going to be, it's because I don't think you consider it, because I don't think you can consider it a straight horror movie per se. Like you said, it is with, with A-list actors also as well. It's a movie that is kind of like more of a suspense thriller as much as you could say it's a horror, correct?
Yeah, it's a suspense thriller, and it's also they do a great job of kind of latching onto your emotions in the film by, in the same way The Last of Us did on PlayStation 4. That's what I was trying to that's what I was thinking when I was watching it. They do a good job of getting you emotionally invested in the characters, and it's surprising that they do it with them using so few words too.
That's definitely good to see. And here, once again, that's our thoughts. And once again, that's Josh's thoughts on A Quiet Place. You can check out his written review coming up in the near future on our Pop Culture Cosmos websites, popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. And I'll tell you what, right now, definitely looking forward to seeing how well it performs over the long haul. And I like it. I agree with Josh. I agree with Josh. I don't think it's going to get a steep drop like normal horror movies do. I think it's going to, because of the good word of mouth, I think it's going to see to see a good long run here at U.S. domestically, and hopefully it will translate as well to a nice worldwide take, because at this present time the box office sorely needs it going into larger movies coming up in the next couple of weeks, including Infinity War coming up later this month. What are your thoughts on A Quiet Place? Was it a suspense thriller that you really enjoyed? Were you scared? Did you like the novel concept of being quiet for a good portion of the movie and basing it off of the temperance of sound, as far as it's the building to suspense based off of being quiet and getting that suspense once any type of sound is heard? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. Well, like I said, we've got a great episode. We've got a great episode coming up for you today. We've got Rob McCallum coming up right after the break in the Cosmic Crossfire. We're going to go at it mano a mano over Ready Player One and our thoughts on the movie itself. Plus, also as well, Josh and I are going to break down the upcoming NHL playoffs. We're going to go ahead and share our thoughts on who will come out of the East, who will come out of the West, and overall, who will take that nice swig of champagne out of the Stanley Cup this year. And then later on in the episode, we are going to talk a little bit more about the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we continue to break down movies in advance of Infinity War. This time it is Doctor Strange, and we're going to ask ourselves not only thoughts on the movie itself as we reflect on it, but also as well if Doctor Strange will be a key player going forward in the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Plus also as well, thoughts again on the TV rating scene from our good friend Hunter Vaught at the TV Ratings Guide. He's going to break down the TV rating scene and some final thoughts as we head into April, as we head more into the month of April on some stuff that has piqued his interest in the TV rating scene. All this is going on. It's going to be another great program right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back again. It's the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford, and we truly thank you for sticking around and enjoying the show. Just want to make sure and let you know our shows are being streamed 7 days a week on online radio, and that we deliver 2 brand new shows covering the latest in pop culture every Monday and Friday to Apple Podcasts or our over 30 different podcast networks. Just subscribe to any one of them on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel to get extra content, or just check out the Pop Culture Cosmos Facebook page for our entire radio schedule and a list of those podcasts and those radio networks, including our latest network, which we'll talk about right now. Just want to say, for our friends in the UK, just want to say thank you to Airwave Radio. Appreciate their support over the past few weeks. But just to let everyone know that we are actually moving from Airwave Radio in the UK to an even larger entity in Sword Radio UK. That's right. We're moving to Sword Radio in the UK. So everybody out there that listens to us in the UK area, or actually, it's worldwide via online radio. So get a chance to check us out. We are headed, I believe, from what we were told, it's going to be on Tuesdays at noon. At noon here in the, around noon here in Pacific time in the US, but I believe it's also 8 p.m. if I'm not mistaken around UK time. So that's once again, Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. UK time. You'll be able to hear some great stuff right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos on our new station in the UK, Sword Radio. Josh, I know you've got a great thing going on with Humanica Media, so please share with us what's going on with your great experience known as Humanica Media.
Yes, we have a brand new episode of Topicocalypse dropping tonight. There will be an interview. We're in at the Super BS. We interviewed the developer of an indie game. You'll be able to listen to that on Tuesday night, as well as a new episode of that show on Thursday. And you can hear another interview that we did from last week with the creators of Poncho. So definitely be sure to check that out. And there will be a new episode of Inside Sports coming at you here soon. So definitely check that out. And we're also on the Podcast Radio Network every Tuesday night at 6:30. 6:30? Did I do it right this time? You got the thumbs up? All right.
No, thumbs down. Thumbs down.
Oh.
The regular scheduled time, unless John Sweeney at the Podcast Radio Network tells us differently, is 7 p.m. You had it last week, man. You had it last week.
Oh, sorry, but that's it.
No worries. It is Attack of the Humanicans, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Podcast Radio Network. What was I going to say? Oh, and if you're downloading this show, just want to let you know, we will go ahead and play right after the episode. The bonus material will be the Super BS Gamescast interview. Is it clean with the Poncho?
Yeah, they rarely, if ever, use swear words on that one.
Okay. Yes, we will go ahead and as bonus material have the Super BS Gamescast interview with the people with the director, the game director of Poncho.
Yeah, from Delve Interactive. And also, sorry, real quick. Also, stay tuned because we will be having an interview with the creative mind behind Where the Water Tastes Like Wine, the indie game, and he's been making his rounds on Polygon, IGN, Kotaku. They haven't exactly.
That's Johan Nordhagen, if I remember from last week's episode.
Yes, and they haven't exactly been treating him that well, but we'll show him some love. And also, we have an interview coming up with the drummer of the post-hardcore band Hope's Fall, and they're giving us a scoop on their new album, and they're jumping back onto the scene. So if you're fans of that type of music, then definitely tune in for that.
That's definitely a lot to look forward to right here at Humanica Media and Pop Culture Cosmos as well. So right now, the NHL playoffs is fast approaching. The NHL season is over. The playoffs are just about to begin. And to break it down real quickly, Josh, we're going to start off in the Eastern Conference with the different teams that are out there. The Tampa Bay Lightning is going to face off against the New Jersey Devils. The Boston Bruins are going to face off against Toronto Maple Leafs. The Washington Capitals are going to face off against the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Pittsburgh Penguins are going to face off against the Philadelphia Flyers in a Pennsylvania bloodbath, which I'm anticipating. Your thoughts on the Eastern Conference playoffs, and who do you think? Actually, who do you think is going to be the favorite coming out of the Eastern Conference this year in the NHL playoffs?
Well, honestly, I think that it's. Hold on. Can we pause for a sec? Let me get my roster out here.
That's okay.
Here, hold on.
This is why we call this the Pop Culture Cosmos raw feed that we do not like to publicize. But we thank TV Ratings Guide and anybody else who does publicize this. But please be warned, this is not the actual show. Listen to the MP3. It's nicely edited. It's smooth. It runs an hour. It's real good. I promise you.
All right, so yeah, as far as that matchup goes in the East, I think that Tampa Bay is the favorite. So honestly, whenever I tell someone, a new hockey fan, when they're saying, "Hey, I want to start watching hockey," I tell them to watch the Tampa Bay Lightning because they are by far, even after the trading Ben Bishop, it's still really like they're a fun team to watch because they're hungry, and they have their Tyler Johnson, Ryan Callahan. They used to have here was his Stan. They don't have. I don't think they have. No, they do have Stamkos still. Yeah. So that's something to look out for. But their goaltending is really good. Like they lost Bishop, but they gained Budai, who is he was goaltending for the Kings, and they have Vasilevsky is actually a really really great goalie, and he was really underused until recently. But the Devils, on the other hand, they're one of those teams that they won the cup in 2011, but you haven't really heard. They kind of faded into obscurity, and it's weird because you look at a lot of these teams, with the exception of the Bruins, and the Penguins and the Capitals. These other teams here, they're teams that didn't really do well, and I guess over the past 5 seasons, but here they're kind of trying to make a name for themselves. So it's such a random assortment of teams. Even on the West, like it's hard. There are so many teams that you wouldn't expect to make the playoffs that it's kind of like at this point it's anybody's game. Do you have any thoughts on the Boston Toronto games?
Well, I'm going to put it this way. I think the Tampa Bay Lightning are a great team. Obviously, when you have one of the best records out there, you're definitely going to have a lot of people going. Well, actually, let's put it this way. They had more wins than anybody else. So from a victory standpoint, and as far from a full body team standpoint, they obviously appear to be a very, very strong team. But I say if it was me, because, the NHL playoffs, even more so than the Major League Baseball, NBA, or NFL playoffs, the NHL playoffs seem to have the more wild finishes than any other pro sports league out there. Obviously, as a Kings fan, you would know that because it wasn't too long ago when the Kings won from the absolute last spot in the playoffs, and they managed to go ahead as far as being a wild card all the way up to actual eventual Stanley Cup champions. So definitely anything could happen. I think it's going to be an issue where there's a lot of good teams at the top. I think what a team that you do have to look out for, in my opinion, is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think they are a very strong team. They're a team that maybe is people are overlooking because Boston and Tampa Bay seem to be ahead of everybody else as far as the regular season concerned. But from what I've seen in the roster and what I've seen in their play, I think Toronto Maple Leafs could provide a surprise. Will it be all the way as far as going to the actual Stanley Cup playoffs and being the team out of the Eastern Conference? Not so sure, but right now I think my pick for going out there, I think right now it's going to be the Toronto Maple Leafs coming out of the East, because I think overall they're a team that people are overlooking, and I think it's those type of teams that seem to score well during the playoff run.
Well, here's the thing. So we have Tampa Bay has been to the playoffs. They've been pretty deep into the playoffs. New Jersey has won a Stanley Cup, but not for a long time. Boston is one of those teams that just kind of bull rushes through the playoffs and then hits a wall, and they seldom ever seem to go farther. And they're kind of more or less the same team as they were before when that happened. The Maple Leafs, Yeah, they have a strong push, and I can't remember if last season they made it to the playoffs, but they push hard, and they have, I think it's those types of teams. This is what I was talking to Charles about, is that when you get into playoffs, it's a completely different game of hockey. It's not.
Charles Smith, of actually the host of the Inside Sports program, who actually I think will also be doing a hockey preview as well.
Yes, he will be doing a hockey preview. Playoff hockey, you have there are two speeds. Drew Doughty said this on the LA Kings. He said that there are two speeds in hockey. There's uh, regular season hockey, regular season speed, and there's playoff speed. And when it comes to playoff speed, they're almost a completely different team. And the same could be said about most of these teams. But as we go down the list here, like you have the Washington Capitals, for example, who they have, they have Ovechkin, they have TJ Oshie, but you wouldn't know that because all everyone ever talks about is freaking Alexander Ovechkin. But they're another team that they get into the playoffs, they get about halfway through the playoffs, and then they just run out of steam because their tactics rely so heavily on one player that there's not really a lot of defense when they get to a team that's a lot faster than, like, say, the Pittsburgh Penguins, who has they have Crosby and Malik, who just, they're skaters, they're really quick. So
If
it's
you were to break it down to maybe one team in the East that you think maybe rises above all others, who would you probably go with if that's the case?
right now I would say Tampa Bay. That's tough because Crosby and Malkin, they work well together. That's a interesting. The Penguins have been there. They've been all the way, and their team is more or less the same as it's been in those days before. So if I were to put my money on a team, it would be the Penguins. But at the same time, I really want to see Tampa Bay go, because much like the San Jose Sharks, the Tampa Bay Lightning have been getting closer and closer to that Stanley Cup goal every time or every season.
Well, that's definitely some pointed views on that. So, looks like your pick then would be Tampa Bay above Pittsburgh, if that's the case.
That's my dream pick. Logically, if I were to go with logic, it might end up being the Penguins. But then again, the Flyers are kind of a wild card, so we don't know what's going on with them.
Well, I'm going to have to ask you to pick in a second here. Firm it up on that. So, while you're thinking of an actual true winner out of the East, or someone that you got to lay money on as a favorite, I will go ahead with the West. In the West, you've got a really good scenario with a lot of solid teams there. We're going to start off with the Nashville Predators versus the Colorado Avalanche, who won their slot on the last day of the season. Winnipeg versus who won their spot actually in their last game of the season. Winnipeg versus Minnesota. The Vegas Golden Knights, the Cinderella story and the best ever expansion team from any of the major sports. They're going against the LA Kings, a team you know very well. Anaheim Ducks, and Anaheim Ducks are also in it. They had a nice closing schedule, winning 8 of their last 10. They are going up against the San Jose Sharks. Right now, a lot of momentum is behind Anaheim because they're the hottest team on the West. As they're one of the hottest teams going in as far as that's concerned. I think Cinderella's glass slipper will break for the Golden Knights in the second round. I've talked to you about this before. As far as I thought the Golden Knights are a great story, but I'm not sure if they were going to be holding up in the playoffs. I think they will squeak by the Kings. I think the Kings will give them a lot to deal with as far as be from an experience standpoint. My pick, I think I'm going to go with the Winnipeg Jets because they are the hottest team going into the NHL. And I think they're going to ride that momentum as far as that, even above the Nashville Predators, who I would make a solid favorite otherwise. So I think right now the Winnipeg Jets are my call to win out of the West. The Vegas Golden Knights, I think, will get by as far as the Kings, but won't win another series after that. I think it's very wishful thinking by us here in Las Vegas, but I think at this point in time, you can't expect to go for them to have that Cinderella story all the way there. I think, like I said, Winnipeg, the hottest team right now going into the playoffs, is going to take the West. Your thoughts on the Western Conference and who will come out of that playoff scenario?
Oh, sorry. All right. So to get to that question here, I don't think the Knights are going to beat the Kings. I disagree with you on that. The Kings are they've been to the playoffs. They've been to the Stanley Cup. They've been there recently. They have the same players ever since Jeff Carter came back. They've just become a completely different team. I don't think that the Knights are going to get past them. I think the Knights will give them a run for their money, but again, playoff hockey is completely different from regular season hockey, and the Knights have never been to a playoff game. So I don't know. I'm curious. I'm interested. I would like to see that, but I don't think they're going to get past the Kings.
And the seats are very expensive if you're here in Las Vegas. That's all I say. But people were gobbling up. People have playoff fever here in Las Vegas, and I can totally understand why from an experience standpoint. Obviously, the Kings have a definite advantage. But who in the West overall do you think will come out on top?
Okay, so that's a good question. I think it's going to be San Jose, because San Jose, much like the Lightning, have been getting closer and closer every season. But here's the thing: Martin Jones has, as a goaltender, has just been getting increasingly better every season he's played. And they took the Sharks have a very strong lineup, and these they've been there. They faced off against the Ducks. They know what to do. They know what not to do. They've had time to kind of focus in on a strategy. And I think that they're going to go all the way. But also, the Predators want it pretty bad too. But I'm predicting, this is my prediction, it's going to be the Sharks versus the Predators for that spot into the Stanley Cup. But let's not.
And who will come out of that?
The Sharks. I got to say the Sharks, because the Predators they're not a Stanley Cup team. I don't think they're ready to get there yet. Actually, they won, didn't? No, who won last season? Wait, I'm having a brain fart right now. Don't put that in the show. They got close, I think. No, they lost they lose to they lost to the Ducks, right? No, right? Let's see. No, they got there. They played the Penguins. Okay, never mind. I was right. Yeah, so they've been to the Stanley Cup. So it's really like the two teams that have the most momentum when it comes to the postseason right now is Nashville and San Jose, and they're the teams that want it the most. The Ducks, they're a good comeback team. The Kings, they're good in the playoffs. The Vegas Knights, unpredictable. Minnesota Wild, they're like the Capitals. They don't really do much. They get into the playoffs and they kind of fizzle out. Winnipeg's another team. They get into the playoffs. They're impressive for the first round maybe, and then they just kind of don't do anything with that. So, I remember they played the Ducks and they had they were clinging. Remember, was it last season or season before where they were clinging on? It was they got to the point where it's 2-3 as far as games go, and the Winnipeg won two more games, and then the Ducks kind of closed that series out. Everyone was like, yes, they're gonna beat the Ducks, and it didn't happen. So I'm predicting Nashville versus San Jose, and I'm predicting San Jose will make it all the way. And then as far as the East goes, I think that it's going to be the Penguins.
Okay, if that's the case, you've got the San Jose Sharks versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. I've got, as far as my picks are concerned, the Toronto Maple Leafs going up against the Winnipeg Jets. When it all comes down to it, I think the Toronto Maple Leafs, for me, they're going to, I'm sorry. I think in the end, it's going to be the Winnipeg Jets are going to be the team to beat overall, and I think they're going to take the Stanley Cup. I see the roster even more stacked. I think they're the hottest team going in as far as that's concerned, and they're going to have all the momentum on their side, and I think they're going to take it all the way to a Stanley Cup. Your thoughts on who will come out in your matchup as far as the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the San Jose Sharks?
Oh, sorry, was that an actual question?
Yes. Who's going to win the Stanley Cup?
Oh, jeez, it's like asking me what my favorite movie is.
That's why it's a prediction show.
Oh, jeez, I'm gonna say San Jose, because Pittsburgh's got some pretty solid offense. San Jose really locks it up around the net. So I'm thinking that San Jose is gonna take it this season, and I hope they do, because as much as I hate Sharks fans, I don't hate them nearly as much as Duck fans.
Fair enough. Even though you live right down the street from where the Anaheim Ducks play.
I don't think that argument is logical. Everyone always throws that at me. They're like, you need to vote for the team closest to you. How many freaking Red Wings fans live in Orange County? You go to a Ducks game when they're playing the Red Wings, about 75% of the audience is wearing red.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough indeed. Once again, that's our picks as far as the NHL playoffs are concerned. Josh is going ahead with the San Jose Sharks, pulling it out on his end over the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm going ahead with the Winnipeg Jets over the Toronto Maple Leafs as far as our picks for the NHL playoffs. Have you got different thoughts on who's going to go all the way and taste that delicious champagne out of the Stanley Cup? Who are your picks in the NHL playoffs this year? Share it with us. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com, or you can send us a message through Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. When we come back, we've got some quick thoughts from our good friend Hunter Vaught at the TV Ratings Guide. And after that, Josh and I will be back to close out the show talking about Doctor Strange and what is his future going to be like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back to close out the show. This is, again, the Pop Culture Cosmos. Want to thank you so much for sticking around and enjoying the entire program. Also want to thank Rob McCallum from Rob McCallum Films. Got to check out all of his great stuff today on robmccallumfilms.com, including the Kitty documentary, Kitty Origins and Evolutions. You can get it today or order it today. It might be sold out again, but there'll be more restock coming on Amazon.com. Also, as well, cannot wait for his new Kickstarter project to be announced fully when it hits on April 24th. Also, as well, want to thank again Hunter Vaught from the TV Ratings Guide, TVRatingsGuide.com, your place to go for all the TV ratings news, reviews, features, original show scripts, and so much more. That's the TVRatingsGuide.com. Josh, before we head on out, we've got to talk a little bit more about our breakdown in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This week, this episode, we're talking about Doctor Strange, as again, we break down the movies leading up to Infinity War. Doctor Strange was kind of like a trippy movie because of all that was going on. And also, it was one of the last introduction movies that we had. Your thoughts on Doctor Strange as a movie, and then I want to ask you a question as far as his involvement going forward. But first, your breakdown of Doctor Strange, if people don't remember it from one of our back episodes of the Pop Culture Cosmos.
Doctor Strange was a visually impressive movie. I think we talked about this before, but like when in filmmaking, you probably know this. There's a group of special effect. I don't know if they're on the special effects team or what, but they're called rotoscopers. And what they do is they take the special effects and they go frame by frame and put them into the movie. I see all the special effects, the kaleidoscope stuff going on in Doctor Strange, and I really hope that they got well paid for that, because that is just that is meticulous work. I did it, and not even on something that elaborate. I did on like a 3-minute movie, and that literally took me 12 hours to do. So I appreciate where they're coming from with that, and that movie probably had a good deal of it. But okay, as for Doctor Strange's place in the MCU, yeah, he's a very important character. If you read the comic books, he is in the upper circle with Tony Stark. You know, you have the Avengers Illuminati, which is made up of Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, Reed Richards, and so I think they have these tentpole characters. Tony Stark is obviously one of them, but since he is rumored to be leaving after this film or after Avengers 4, they're going to have to turn to Doctor Strange or Reed Richards, and they don't have access to Reed Richards fully yet because I know those contracts haven't been signed. So Doctor Strange is obviously the next choice, but what Doctor Strange also does, which is good, it opens them up to a whole new, much like Reed Richards opens them up to the end zone and all those other dimensions. Doctor Strange has access to different planes of existence. So, you have shoot, what is the bad guy's name in Doctor Strange? Is
Mordo.
more, yeah, right, yeah,
You're talking about Mordo, who lived through it, actually was an ally of Doctor Strange, and who will be actually a bad guy, because as the end of the movie, you actually see him feeling like he was betrayed because of what happened to the Chosen One, as far as the betrayal that she showed using dark magic.
Dormammu. Dormammu, that's what I'm talking about.
Well,
The
Dormammu was the big entity in and of itself. That I love that trippy scene where they go into it and he keeps repeating it over and over and puts them into a time loop. And that was just truly enjoyable to watch. And that scene was just, to me, always unforgettable in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right, and the thing with Dormammu is that he has the potential to be a big baddie, just like Thanos does. If they put him into a more serious role, that we only got to see a little glimpse of him. But um, yeah, Doctor Strange he's kind of he anytime in the comic books, anytime there's a dispute or there's something going on, House of M is a good example. Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch is losing control of her powers and she's doing all this stuff and killing all these people, and Doctor Strange shows up and he's the one that can see through it. So he's the foundation of all of that side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because now that we have Scarlet Witch, you have access to those stories that were potentials of her losing her power. They're going to have something monumental happen in order to pull some people into this next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But the movie was really good. It was well written. You kind of got his background story, without having to go through all this back materials and stuff. The whole story with his hands and the Eye of Agamotto, and him becoming Doctor Strange and kind of honing in on that. He kind of became the Grand Master, or he became Doctor Strange really quickly. But I guess they needed that to happen for the movies to progress into the next phase. But I'm a fan. I'm a pretty big fan. What's his name? I think I talked about this in my review. Mordo, his transition from being a good guy to a bad guy wasn't really fleshed out that well. It kind of didn't make a lot of sense as to his motives. He's just was like, all right, we killed this bad guy, I'm gonna go become a bad guy. So that was kind of weird to me.
Because he felt betrayed again, like I said earlier, about the dark magic that was used by the Chosen One, which he felt was a betrayal of what he was doing. And now he's committed to try and end all sorcery once and for all.
Right, but that was kind of there should have been a more dramatic turning point, much like how Tony Stark didn't really have. It was kind of a weird transition from, happy-go-lucky Tony to sad, moody, broody Tony. So I just wish they would have fleshed that out a little more, but I get it. It's a 2.5 hour movie. There's not really much else they can add into that. But anyways, what did you think of it?
I thought overall it was a solid movie. Again, visually it was outstanding to watch, and I think that is its greatest attribute that will last for a long time to come. Going forward, however, I want to talk about Doctor Strange as being one of the main entities in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and being someone that they can rely on for the foreseeable future as a Tony Stark character that they can lean on. Because I think I see, well, I'm going to say it right now. I think for the next phase of the MCU, I think you're going to be leaning on Doctor Strange and Captain Marvel as your Captain America, Iron Man 1-2 punch type deal, as far as people as superheroes that the Marvel Cinematic Universe will lean on, as far as being those two entities that Marvel's going to push out to the forefront as far as being the two main characters to rely on. Do you feel differently? But again, I that's what I sense. I think Captain Marvel and Doctor Strange are going to be the 1-2 punch, like Captain America and Iron Man were for the previous phases of the MCU.
No, I agree. For this, this first section of the MCU, showed the earthly hero. They did a good job of showing like Earth and the cosmic side and all the things that affect that sector, I guess, of the galaxy. And then in now going forward, they're going to have to up this. They're obviously going to have to up the ante a little bit. And so bringing Captain Marvel in is a good way to show that, like, hey, we're still, and they have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. We're still paying attention to this cosmic side that we opened up, but also we have this new realm that we're exploring, which is the astral realm of the MCU, where there's a lot of good stories to be told there. So I think that Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, their abilities are going to open up to bigger, badder possibilities as far as an overarching villain goes, and they would be crazy not to use that. But then again, I'm hearing rumors of the Secret Invasion, Skrull Kree, or whatever, and yeah, I don't know what to think. But there are and also Ant-Man Wasp, the quantum realm. So there's a lot of places that they could go. They have several options at this point. But no, I think you're right. Doctor Strange is going to be a tentpole figure in this era of the MCU, and which is going to be cool because he's kind of someone who is not expanding, but like kind of living through all of the phases. And who knows when we're going to see Doctor Strange 3? I know he's signed on for that, but we're getting a character that is going to be with us through this journey for a long time, and that's really cool to see.
It definitely is. And I think so far, Benedict Cumberbatch has done a great job with Doctor Strange. I think he makes a very convincing case as Doctor Strange. And I look forward to seeing him not only in a sequel to Doctor Strange, the original movie, which hopefully will be even better than this other one, which I thought was good, which I thought was solid. But again, there are better movies in the MCU. But I'm hoping as a lead character, he will be that tentpole as good as Iron Man and Captain America have been for the previous phase. And I'm just going to say it again, I foresee him and Captain Marvel being those two entities to look out for the foreseeable future, in the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What are your thoughts on Doctor Strange? Did you enjoy the movie? Did you think it was a psychedelic trip like we did? Also, do you think Doctor Strange will be one of the key members of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as it continues into the next phase after Avengers 4? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. So Josh, any last thoughts on the way out?
Go see A Quiet Place, and I am going to be reviewing some games here soon, so stay tuned for that. I got like 4 that are going to be popping up here over the next 2 weeks.
Definitely, and we're breaking down our top 200 list. We're breaking down the list of top video games very soon. We're actually formulating and tabulating all the votes now as we speak. Plus, also as well, got hopefully some good articles going up this week as well. Can't wait to be able to show everyone out there the great stuff going on with Pop Culture Cosmos, and we definitely thank you for being so much a part of it. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.